And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Tyler Carlson, as promised, with us, MEC.
Good morning.
CEO. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
You look nice and relaxed this morning. You're looking forward to a good weekend, I see.
Yeah, absolutely. Much more relaxed than a couple of weeks ago
boy.
when we were just at the end of all of that. But we still have, we're still doing some cleanup.
Right.
We still have some lines that are not back up, but we've got all the load fed from everywhere else. So we're still, I mean, it takes weeks afterwards to get it all done and cleaned up. So we're still working it.
Well, I have kind of a small idea of why you're here, and I'm anxious to hear that. But one question I want to ask you, because there's a raging debate going on in the state of Nevada right now, or at least in this end of Nevada, about NV Energy and taking away the monopoly from them. Yes or no on 13, I believe.
Retail access.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in talking with you, if I remember correctly, you have mentioned that sometimes when they do get away from the monopoly, you sometimes have some bad results.
Well, in the United States, the history has been there have been very few instances, and in fact, it's much more prolific, much more often that when these types of things happen, retail access, direct access happens. What typically happens is the large businesses tend to find a way to have a lower rate, and the residential and the regular consumers rates go up. And that's predominant all throughout the United States. There's few exceptions, but all of the examples just go to rates going up. So it has a lot to do with the rate history and how rates have been set over the historical time periods. And it sounds really good, it sounds really attractive, but it just doesn't tend to work that way. And it hasn't worked that way. And I just saw a study in the last year that looked at all of the examples of retail access and how they worked. And typically you'll find that very large metropolitan areas and large businesses tend to do better than rural areas and smaller businesses and residential folks in the whole process. So,
you know, years ago there was a big fight between the pretty much the properties, the larger properties up in Las Vegas and NV Energy, because they were starting to run their rates up again. And I remember that was the time that everybody went to those other type of bulbs, not the incandescent but the fluorescents. And of course everybody put timers and saving every way they could. But there were several of the properties up in Las Vegas says, we've had it with NV Energy, we're going to do something else. We've had it. So I don't recall, and I don't know that any of them are off the grid with NV Energy.
Sure.
But I can almost guarantee you they're already paying lower rates than the rest of us.
They probably are. I mean, I really don't know. I don't know a lot about NV Energy's rates,
right.
Especially when it gets past residential. When we do rate comparisons all the time for how our rates are, we're generally using residential rates because that's predominantly our population.
Right.
We really don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out. You might think that all of us spend all of our time trying to figure out what everyone else's rates are, and we really don't.
No, I know. You've got your own.
We've got our own stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, my friend, what brings you here this morning?
Well, I've been talking to you on and off, hinting about something that we've been working on, and over the years, I've found myself to be in a really great relationship with Nancy Monjo of Legacy. Great lady, and we have worked together on a number of different boards, a number of different things we have done together. And since I've been here and we've been always talking about having some type of temporary, kind of like interim homeless shelters. We really don't have a lot of that.
Right.
And we've been talking about it on and off, how it would work, wouldn't work, could work, whatever, and in a lot of different arenas. And Catholic Charities and Legacy had teamed up over the last while to and they've been shooting towards building a really great homeless shelter. As far as I'm concerned, it's really for interim. It's to get people from a transition from where they might find themselves in a hardship and try to transition them back into some form of the society in which they can thrive in. And so there's training, there's all kinds of different resources that are provided, intended to be provided. And if you remember, last year we were trying to get our bill done to keep our money local.
Right.
And we intended to start working with, try to work with Legacy and work with Catholic Charities to expand that shelter a little bit. And but of course last year, you remember, the legislation failed.
Right.
There was one person and it is close to voting time too.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's close to voting time. So, and that one person, you remember his name? Probably not.
No. You do, however.
I might remember his name. But we were one short, but we went after it and worked on it again.
Is he running again?
He's running again.
Oh. Out of the, is that the one out of Havasu area?
I think he's out of Havasu.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think I may have an idea.
I think you might have an idea. So
Pay attention.
But it is election time again.
Right.
So so there are folks running, and of course Borelli and Cobb did yeoman work for us, trying to make sure it got done, and we did get it done this year. So as soon as we got it done, then I was able to, fortunate enough to be able to meet with Nancy Mangio again and talk about our plan. It's a plan it's something that Mojave Electric's been trying to, we've been having an intention to work on, but you have to have access to these particular funds to be able to do it.
Right.
So we went to talk to Legacy, and we went to, and ended up, Nancy got us together with Catholic Charities, and what we wanted to do was to help provide an additional homeless area in their homeless shelter. We know that we have a substantial number of veterans in our area.
Yeah.
We also know that by default, then we have a substantial number of homeless veterans that find themselves without residence at times in their life. And so what we worked on is a specific part of that new shelter that's going into play, that's specifically for homeless veterans.
No way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's huge.
Well, it's very
huge.
cool. And look at that, Chad. You're magical. If you look up on this. Look up on the screen way on the far left, and you know that I'm color deficient, so you'll have to tell me what color that is.
Kind of a mustard yellow.
All right, whatever that color is, that's the addition, and we really thank Catholic Charities, and we thank Legacy. We all got together, and really Legacy and Catholic Charities got together to figure out how do they add that, because that wasn't there before.
Right.
And so that particular portion is specifically laid out. Not only is it laid out with the intention of helping homeless veterans, but we also, Mojave Electric will be contributing annually for resources. So the vets that do find themselves in that position and find themselves at the homeless area will have access to resources to try to, not just access to resources to get themselves back into society to the extent that they can, but access to all of the specially trained folks and resources so they can get access to the veterans' resources that they so deserve. And so it's going to be set up really well, and to be honest with you, how it'll actually work, I don't know that, but you know that Nancy will. That's something I can count on, is that if it comes to this line of work, Nancy knows her business, and Nancy is an incredible resource we have in this tri-state area.
Well, people only knew.
Yeah, well, I'm saying it. She's an incredible resource here, and I really feel blessed that I've been able to work with her and got to know her, and here we are years after first working with her, and I think it's been 10 years now that I've worked with her, but here we are now. We're off on this venture.
That's huge.
And that whole multipurpose facility is going to be located on North Oakland Road. and it should be constructed, or at least the last schedule I saw is October of 2019. This is a brand new facility.
Wow.
It's going to be amazing. And certainly folks should be talking to the legacy, but also talking to Catholic Charities. To the extent that you want to participate and contribute to this, they could use funds, but that's the
nice
building.
looking.
It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a beautiful area, and there are areas for administrative folks to be in. There's areas for homeless, and we're talking about just general men and women's homeless, and as well as family, and a family shelters specifically created to be able to handle or partially intact families. That's typically what will come to them, as partially intact families, one of the spouses and some children, and it's set up for that. We're really excited to be part of this,
with all professionals there to help in any way they can.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Well, thanks.
Huge.
We're just really happy that we can participate, and we're really happy that the folks, the Catholic Charities folks, as well as Legacy, let us in and let us be part of this. We intended to do it last year, but the bill didn't work, so we had to wait till we actually had the bill and the specific language in, and then we walked off. And the board of directors, as soon as this was all passed and ready to go, the board of directors tasked me to go off and do something, and what they tasked me to go off and do something to help transitional homeless veterans. That's what they did.
So
cool. And I was able to walk off and start working with Legacy and Catholic Charities, and it's pretty incredible. I remember talking with Nancy about something like this years ago, and we just didn't feel like it was going to ever happen, or it could ever happen, and here we are.
You know, it's interesting, because in my mind, when I think of veterans, which is really not sad, but I think a lot of people my age, we think of Vietnam veterans because that's the era in which we grew up. But there are so many since then that have been across the ocean into the Mideast and in fighting for our freedoms.
Absolutely.
And they certainly deserve as much recognition and as much help as they can possibly get. And there's a lot of them out on the street too.
Yeah, and that's really it. I mean, when we're talking about the homeless veteran issue, it's an issue all across the United States, and we know that we have a share of that, and we know we can't take care of everyone. Right. But there is a resource now, and if you couple that with the Veterans Resource Center, in which we support also, we're trying to provide veterans access to resources for them for whatever their needs are, specific to veterans, and then there's this particular transitional shelter for them if they find themselves to be homeless, and I wish I could tell you where to call yet and stuff. It's not built, we're not there, but when it's built, there'll be a place for those folks, and there'll be some educational resources for them. There'll be some human resources and some and resources as far as pointing them in directions that they can obtain resources. Right. Specifically for veterans, so we're pretty excited about it, and we're not excited that there exists a veterans population. Understood. But that being a given that there are, and as you point out, there's still people coming back today who have experienced combat and have served this country. And have provided for our freedom, or provided for our ability to have this freedom.
Well, I know that Tara will undoubtedly be available to help pour concrete, do some framing.
Sure.
Sure.
Just checking to see if I'm paying attention.
That's it. Well, Tyler, I got to tell you, thank you for bringing that to us. I really appreciate it. It's good. These things are wonderful to know and hear about. It's good forward progressive movement for our community, and I wish that others would take heed and see what's going on with you and the other guys, because it's certainly needed and probably past due.
Well, there's a lot of folks in the community that do work hard. There's a lot of folks in the community. Unfortunately, it sometimes tends to be the same folks working hard, and so they end up working harder and harder. But there's a lot of folks there, and there's a lot of folks working hard. Our community is growing, and we are having some growth, business growth, and I think that being able to put money back into the communities and directly into the communities, and this is somewhat similar to what when we created the River Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Is that to make sure that the monies that are developed here go back here into the community some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And the legislation that we all passed did exactly that. The whole concept was make sure that money that was developed here and is here stays here and reinvests itself back in the community, and that's something that we're doing right here.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Tyler Carlson, ladies and gentlemen, with some very, very good news for our communities yet again. Stay right where you are. We're going to speak that. I was going to do that. I had it right here. Number 1. We're going to be talking with Brad Rutledge from the Golden Nugget right after we get back from these messages. Stay with us.